200 years ago, the great dwarf smith Dwarves the Black built Kundrakar, a hidden stronghold for his war of vengeance against all orc kind. For years Dwarves laboured, until the orcs discovered Kundrakar and stormed the citadel, slaying all within. Legends say that Dwarves' masterful blades and glittering treasures were never found. The Forge of Fury was released in the year 2000 as the second adventure in a loosely connected series for 3rd edition D&D. It was written by Richard Baker and takes characters from 3rd to 5th level in the ancient dwarven stronghold. The adventure was also updated to 5th edition in 2017's Tales of the Yawning Portal, with extra art and maps, but little variation from the original. It functions quite comfortably as a standalone adventure and can be fairly easily inserted into any campaign, so long as you have a big mountain somewhere. The plot hooks provided are a little dull but serviceable. The PCs will have heard of the legendary blacksmith Dwarves, and his fabled blades will likely be the object of dungeon delving. Having a dwarven character distantly related to Dwarves would obviously add some motivation to explore Kundrakar. In addition, locals have been plagued by orc raids recently, and the culprits are said to inhabit the abandoned dwarven stronghold. The adventure harkens back to traditional dungeon crawling, and revisits the perhaps overdone trope of an ancient dwarven stronghold overrun with orcs. In that sense, it's a very traditional fantasy adventure. However, there are plenty of interesting monsters and challenges here that are not as cliché. There is also a dragon, an oft-overlooked monster in many adventures, despite the name of the game. The book itself is a 32-page softcover adventure. The design is similar to that established in late 2nd edition in black and white, with a few pictures and masses of text. This style would remain until about 2006, when Wizards would transition to a more colourful style, focusing more on encounter maps. There is something pleasing about this early 2000s design, but be aware that there is a lot of information crammed into those 32 pages. It will be a long time until modules are streamlined and concise, and in the case of modern 5th edition adventure modules, we're still waiting for that to happen. A summary of the adventure follows, so be warned of spoilers ahead. The adventurers should explore the old dwarven fortress in search of the fabled weapons forged by Dwarves. The place has been taken over by orcs, and the orcs have recently been causing problems to the locals. As the characters descend lower into the fortress, they discover other unexpected inhabitants, such as a tribe of troglodytes, a clan of Duergar attempting to reclaim the forge, the undead remains of the original dwarven inhabitants, and, ultimately, the Black Dragon Night Scale. There are 4 ways into the mountain lair, 2 of which are very difficult to find, and in the way the module is written, I think that these are expected to be used as exits rather than entrances. The other route is nigh impossible to find or navigate at the expected PC level. The characters will almost certainly enter the orc-controlled fortress via the front door, thus meeting the orc inhabitants head-on. In a sense, it is logical that enemies should only enter the fortress from one well-defended entrance, but for a D&D adventure, it would be nice to see more options that the PCs can exploit in order to enter the fortress. At the mountain door, the PCs will be faced with a somewhat organised orc force. Ingress into the mountain should be exciting, dangerous, and tactically interesting. It is basically a running battle throughout the first level of the dungeon as the orcs attempt to repulse intruders with brute force. The initial entrance and conflict with the orcs is one of my favourite parts of the module. The orcs are familiar with the defences of the stronghold and are able to use this knowledge to their advantage. A well-prepared DM could surround and eliminate PCs using the secret doors, arrow slits, and rickety bridge across the chasm. It may take a session or 2 to complete, but once the PCs have defeated the orcs, the players should feel a great sense of achievement. The DM has the opportunity to prepare tactics, which some may enjoy, but the module helpfully describes the orcs' likely actions if required. The map loops, keeping players on their toes and allowing for orc ambushes. There are a couple of interesting traps left over from the Dwarves, which may trouble the PCs, but otherwise this level is not too remarkable. But that's okay, things get more interesting as the PCs descend into the Glitterheme. The second level of the dungeon differs from the first in that it is a cavern system, and not built by Dwarves. The enemies here are troglodytes, differing in their tactics to the orcs from above. The troglodytes will hide and ambush before fleeing and regrouping. They use their nauseating stench and attempt to separate party members, keeping always away from sources of fire if possible. The troglodytes can be run more like a horror encounter than the orcs, harassing and hunting the characters throughout the glittering caves. The Glitterheme is supposed to be a place of glittering gems and minerals embedded in the walls, reflecting torchlight in a dazzling display, yet the descriptions provided are half-hearted. Some of the caverns on this level are vast, and with only torch or lantern light, the PCs will be beset by darkness on all sides. Environmental difficulties, slopes, cliffs, and a river can help make combat encounters more interesting. The Glitterheme also houses a few oddities as well, including a caged bear, a cavern of dangerous yellow mould, certainly a D&D staple, and a chained-up giant lizard. The mould encounter is one of the few rooms that offers a challenge that cannot be overcome with a simple D20 roll, a rarity in 3rd edition. Knowledgeable characters may be able to identify the danger of the mould, but there is no written method in which the characters are supposed to obtain the treasure within. It would be nice if more challenges like this were seen in the adventure. There are a collection of ancient dwarven sepulchres in the cave as well. Disappointingly, there is no danger associated with the breaking into these tombs, though perhaps undead bursting from within would be a little cliché. Instead, consider this to be a place for a surprise troglodyte attack. There are 2 routes out of the Glitterheme: stairs to the foundry or the slippery route into the sinkhole. The forgotten dwarven storerooms in the sinkhole are dark, dank, and spooky. This level is mostly empty and great for creating suspense and dread. This area is flooded and can cause issues with PC's torches and equipment as they explore. Worse still, they are unable to see what lurks beneath the black waters. Incidentally, there are few enemies in this part of the dungeon, but the grey ooze and roper that reside here are likely to be deadly. The roper is a memorable encounter, but not necessarily in a good way. The monster is much too powerful for a 3rd or 4th level party to engage, as detailed in the sidebar warning the DM about this encounter. The way that the encounter is written describes characters sneaking into the room and determining that the large stalagmite is in fact a dangerous creature not to be trifled with. A more likely event sees the characters entering the room, being attacked by the creature, and at least one casualty before the remainder of the party flee. The roper can speak, and may be parleyed with. While it is possible that the party will have an interesting encounter here, it is more likely to lead to a dead character or two, with few lessons learned. More forewarning of the creature than a half-dead fish on the bank of the stream would help to give an indication of danger. The encounter is designed to teach players that not all enemies can be overcome. On this occasion, the encounter doesn't really work. The abandoned dwarven foundry is now home to a small group of Durgar, who seek to restart the forge and discover the secrets of Durgedin. The enemy are a tactically different foe from the orcs and troglodytes that precede them. They have high armor class, magical abilities to enlarge themselves or become invisible, and dark vision. One of their number is even a wizard, something which may need to be modified if you run this adventure with an older system. The Durgar, unlike other foes in the dungeon, are susceptible to negotiation, especially bribery. Aside from the Grey Dwarves, the level is also home to undead, remnants of the original dwarven inhabitants. The most dangerous of these is an Alip, which can pass through walls and can be used to terrorise the PCs repeatedly as they explore. There are also animated objects, a rug, a table and some training mannequins. These seem out of place in my opinion, and personally I omitted them. Finally, this level contains a captured succubus, sitting alone and feigning sorrow in an abandoned library. The encounter is an interesting one, which can lead to a potential recurring villain, yet again seems out of place. She was summoned and imprisoned here by a wizard who previously explored the dungeon. The whole situation is certainly strange, and your players will likely be suspicious of this seemingly innocent prisoner. The conclusion of the adventure is the Black Lake, home to Nightscale, the young black dragon. It is always good to see the game's namesake featured in an adventure, and this is just about the lowest level when a dragon of any notable size can appear. The dark, wet caves provide an interesting site for battle. The large underground lake is advantageous to the swimming dragon and allows access to the dark passages west of the dragon's lair. I cannot find any description of the ceiling height in this area, but I presume the cavern is tall enough to allow the dragon to take flight, though the module only describes the dragon as swimming. The darkness for the cave and water will also aid the dragon in its assault of the adventurers. This is another difficult fight, but unlike the Roper encounter, there have been plenty of hints prior to arriving at the site. The PCs will likely be depleted in their resources at this stage though, and once they enter the Black Lake it will be hard for them to escape from the dragon. The Forge of Fury is an adventure site, no plot is indicated, so the story should emerge from the encounters and actions. The atmosphere and theme of the setting is a little bland at times, but each level has its own character that differentiates from one another. I think the descriptions in the areas could be exaggerated a little more in order to really define each level. The text is dense, but organised into categories such as creatures, tactics, development, etc. There are separate read-aloud text entries, and creature hit points are listed in the rooms they will be found in. There are some sidebars which feature useful information, such as common dungeon features and information applicable to the dungeon level rather than a specific room. The monster statistics are listed at the end of the book in a format which is highly condensed and difficult to parse quickly. The format used in early 3rd edition had been used throughout 2nd edition, but at this stage the amount of information for each monster was increasing and becoming unwieldy in this condensed format. The large form stat block would soon become more commonplace and is still favoured in 5th edition, despite the space requirements. The stat blocks in Forge of Fury are probably more useful than those large stat blocks, but are just a little hard to quickly scan. It is worth making a roster sheet yourself with only the information that will likely come up: speed, initiative, AC and attacks. All else can be referenced from the stat block as required. Overall, the text is written in a fairly usable manner. The descriptive read-aloud text does not do a good job of creating a vivid picture for the players, though. For example, the introduction to the Glitterheme describes the following in the DM text. The caverns are beautiful. The walls sparkle and glisten with flecks of semi-precious stone, and millennia of water sculpting have created sheets of fluted flowstone, delicate stalactites and picturesque stalagmites. The Glitterheme is a living cave, and water streams down through the cavern towards the underground river far below. Yet the read-aloud text to the players is much more utilitarian, mainly describing the size and shape of the caverns and the entrances and exits. Each of the levels of the dungeon has some interesting characteristic that should be described more to give a distinctive atmosphere. If you're running this adventure, try to turn the atmosphere up to 11. The treasures in this module are not particularly interesting. Generally standard items available from the Dungeon Master's Guide, including potions, scrolls, and basic +1 or +2 magic items. The Blades of Durgedin do not have any other interesting properties, which is a shame. Overall, the treasure is disappointing. The maps are quite interesting, at least each level varies in layout and style. There are a few ways of navigating the levels, meaning that the map overall is not a totally linear affair, but still there is an expected route to be taken. I quite like the maps. They are simple and easy to read, though no scale is marked upon them. The re-release in Tales of the Yawning Portal have updated the maps, including the furniture and objects in each room, making them somewhat more useful as player-facing maps. The encounters are a nice selection, ranging in power level. As mentioned previously, if the monster groups coordinate effectively and use good strategy to defeat the PCs, then some of the encounters could be very difficult to overcome indeed. Some encounters will be deadly no matter what, including the Roper and the Dragon. The former is designed to teach the players the merit of fleeing when the situation calls for it, but fails to adequately signal the danger. The Durgar are an interesting enemy, and their magical abilities will differentiate them from the normal dwarves, perhaps surprising players who have not encountered such foes before. Again, if they coordinate well, the Durgar can be quite deadly. There are a variety of interesting traps and environmental hazards, including poison traps, fire traps, pits, slippery surfaces, and magical traps. Most of the traps logically fit within the dungeon, but generally there are not interesting options in which to bypass or defeat the traps outside of skill checks, as is the standard fashion for 3rd edition. Encounters with the orcs and troglodytes are expected to be resolved through combat, but there are specific notes on possible negotiations with the Durgar. There is even some conflict between the orcs and troglodytes which could potentially be exploited, but with some difficulty. It's nice to see factions which can be pitted against one another, however unlikely it is actually to be achieved in this adventure. The orc band consists of about 20 orcs and their ogre leader. It is a bit of a sparse crew. I imagine that many more orcs would have been too much of a challenge for a 3rd level party, but still, it seems like too small a group. I would perhaps increase the number of enemies, especially if running in basic or 1st edition. The same goes for the other groups, 16 troglodytes and a very small gang of 8 Durgar. There appears to be no wandering monsters or any type of time limit, hinting at a slightly stagnant experience. When running this adventure, try to find ways to proactively harass the PCs through scouting parties or intermittent reinforcements to the monstrous groups. Overall, I find this to be a solid adventure. The old school spirit of dungeon crawling is here, with little in the way of plot to restrict the players. There is variety in enemies and difficulty. The Forge of Fury is available as a PDF from DriveThruRPG. A physical version can be obtained fairly cheaply from eBay for about £20 at the time of this recording. The other alternative is to pick up the Tales from the Yawning Portal, a 5th edition conversion as part of a hardcover collection which includes some updated art and maps. Have you played through this adventure? If so, what did you think? Do you think that the Forge of Fury would work well with an older edition of the game? If you've enjoyed this video, please leave a comment or subscribe, or you can pick up one of my books from DriveThruRPG. As always, thanks for watching.